Hello there children, it's Mr Yeardsley here at school. I'm sat in the Limpat Library. I'm going to continue reading for our Year 2 children, The Nothing to See Here Hotel. We're up to Chapter 8. Have a little think why there'd been such a kerfuffle at the hotel when the Goblin Post arrived. Who was coming to visit? Let's recap. This is a short chapter, the first Chapter 8. You've made it this far. Right, let's stop here for a tiny second and talk about the stuff you've read so far. I bet you never imagined these kind of things were going to happen. I also bet that by now you wouldn't have expected to say, yep, I was right. That Frankie Bannister is just a complete nutter. Admit it. Ha ha! Well, you didn't. Here we are at Chapter 8, and I know you can't wait to read what happens next. And since the next few hours were mostly full of everyone running around like headless chickens trying to get everything ready for the prince, I say we skip all of the boring cleaning bits and jump into the next morning when Grogber was due to arrive. Chapter 9. Francis! I opened one eye. Francis, wake up and get down here. It was Dad's voice, coming from the dented, trumpet-shaped contraption that poked out of the wall just above my bed. It's an annoying gadget that trolls invented hundreds of years ago, called a yellophone. Down in the kitchen was the main speaker, which was attached to a machine that looked a bit like an old-fashioned typewriter, but each button connected it to a different room of the hotel. I could picture Dad down there now, clicking the button for my bedroom and howling away up the pipes. I sat up, rubbed the sleep from my eyes and gave my usual nod to the framed picture of great-great-great-granddad Abraham on the wall. Morning, Abe, I said. I sometimes really wish I could have met him, just once. In the picture, Grandad Abraham is trekking through deep jungle and there's a boy of about my age with green eyes and jet black hair standing next to him. I don't know who the kid is, but I wish it could have been me instead. I would have loved to have gone on adventures with good old Abe. There's the picture. I yawned and took around my bedroom. It was just how I liked it. I can never find anything when things are tidy, but if my bedroom is perfectly messy, I know exactly where everything is. It's a bit like my Maisie's bedroom at home. My Ministry of Mutants comics go on the floor. My clothes are all in a mound at the end of the bed, and great-granddad Abraham's collection of the real-life adventures of Captain Plank books are piled up on the windowsill. Captain Calamitous Plank is a big celebrity in the magical world. He's an ancient goblin pirate, and if what Granny says is true, he was a good friend of Abe's back in the old days. I love reading about his swashbuckling quests. They're my favourite. I even have a poster of him above my fireplace. There's the messy room. Is your room like that at home? Don't tell me, I don't want to know. Oh, speaking of fireplaces, I glanced over it. Morning, I said. Nothing moved. Don't worry, I don't spend my mornings talking to fireplaces. I'll explain. I reached out my hand and wriggled my fingers. Wakey, wakey! Slowly, the glowing coals in the bottom of the grate shifted and opened one eye. Morning, matey, I said. Who wants a treat? The pile of coals uncurled, and Hoggit, my pet pygmy soot dragon, leapt onto the bed. There he is. Ha ha! I've been waiting for just the right moment to tell you about Hoggit. He might only be the size of a little dog, but Hoggit's the coolest pet in the world. Well, he is at the moment. One day, when he finally breathes fire, he'll be the hottest pet in the world. Dad says I need to be patient and Hoggit will become a proper little inferno one day. Hello, boy, I said as Hoggit flopped over my lap and started purring. Grrr, he moaned, looking up at me with wide eyes. He huffed a tiny smoke ring into the air, which is his way of saying, feed me. Suddenly, I felt guilty. I'd only used the T-R-E-A-T trick. to get him out of his fireplace bed, and now I didn't have anything to give him. "Francis, now!" This time it was Mum's voice coming out of the yellow phone. "You've slept in. The prince is due any minute." "Come on, we'd better go, boy, before they put Granny out," on the yellow phone. Hoggett wagged his tail at me and then jumped off the bed and onto the big squishy armchair. I quickly threw on some clothes from the laundry pile and glanced at myself in the mirror. My trousers were wrinkly and my t-shirt had a stain on it, but what did it matter? Everyone would be far too excited to care about boring stuff like that. I walked over to the armchair and sat down, pulling Hoggett onto my lap. Then I clicked the little dial in the arm of the chair to just the right combination and braced myself as it juddered and started lowering down through the floor. You see, my bedroom is in a secret spot above the library with no doors or stairs leading to it. That's why I think it's the best room in the whole hotel. Great-great-great-granddad Abraham used it as a private place to keep all his books and specimens and notes about strange animals so they didn't get muddled in with the others in the library below, and designed a special chairlift that only he knew the code for. After lots of begging, Mum and Dad finally let me move into the room as a present on my birthday a few years ago. They gave me the dial codes for Abe's armchair, and once I'd learned them by heart, I fed the piece of paper to Hoggett, so only I know how to make the chairlift work, and Mum can't keep barging in and telling me to tidy up. We were rattling past the magical dark romance section when I looked down and saw a gaggle of dust pooks skittering across the floor in a line. "Quickly, quickly, quickly," they were singing to themselves. The dust pook at the end of the line peered up and saw me and Hoggett riding the chair down the track into the wall by the bookshelves. "Quickly, quickly, quickly," it yelled at me in its squeaky little voice. "Quickly, quickly, quickly." The chair reached the library floor with a bump, and, with Hoggett trotting along beside me, I ran after the potato-sized pooks to find everyone. It was exciting to know I was going to see a barrow goblin today, but I didn't know why Mum and Dad were in such a flap. Goblins were gross, dirty creatures. What did they care if there was dust on the mantelpiece or wrinkles on the bed sheets? I turned through the archway that led from the library into reception. For a second, I thought it was completely deserted, until I spotted Mr Crocombe, the gardener, halfway up the stairs, decking the banister with garlands of flowers. "Frankie, there you are," he said, smiling down at me. "You'd better hurry on out to the garden. Everyone's there, and your mum and dad are in a bit of a panic." Horatio Crocombe hadn't been working for us for very long. He'd arrived at the hotel as a human health inspector, then never left when he discovered it was actually stuffed full of magical creatures. You see, Mr Crocombe is a froggle, although you'd never know it. He's what's known as a blender, in that he looks just like a human, but when he opens his mouth, a 10-foot-long tongue shoots out and can grab something on the other side of his potting shed. He'd spent the entire life hiding his massive secret, not realising there was a whole magical world out there. And then he found us. Now he's married to Mrs Venus, a giant flytrap plant that Grandad Abe brought to the hotel as a tiny sapling, back when he was exploring in the Peruvian jungle all those years ago. Mrs V is pretty cool to look at, with her red and green teeth and tendril arms, but we've had a few problems recently because she keeps falling asleep with her mouth open on the lawn. Just last month, Hoggett ran in there after his ball and he nearly got gulped down. There's Hoggett. "Thanks, Mr Crocombe," I said. I raced down the hallway and past an enchanted mop that lazily sloshed its way about on the tiles. Mum had obviously put it to work earlier that morning. When I reached the kitchen door, I pushed it open and ducked just in time as a saucepan flew right over my head, knocking the mop clattering to the floor. Nancy was cooking at the stove like a blur. She was balanced on one leg while her other 7 limbs were stirring, whisking, chopping, grabbing spice jars for shelves, flipping ingredients in pans, kneading dough and shoving trays of food into the oven, all at the same time. "Cockroach puree, swamp grass, giblet jam, unicorn eggs," she mumbled to herself. "Yep, that's the kind of food magical creatures like to eat. Get used to it after a while, and some of it actually tastes quite good. I bet you didn't know that unicorns lay eggs. I darted past Nancy into the conservatory and instantly saw that most of the hotel guests had assembled on the patio outside. Quickly, I made my way along the rows of Mr Crocombe and Mrs Venus plant pots and stepped through the glass door at the far end, and a sardine skeleton hit me in the face with a sloppy, smelly slap. You weren't expecting that, were you? And neither were I. I wonder who slapped him with a sardine skeleton. It's all getting rather hectic at the hotel with their special visitor coming, isn't it? Children, I hope you enjoyed continuing reading the story with me. I've really enjoyed reading it to you. Just remember, folks, our school motto: if you see someone without a smile, give them one of yours. Keep smiling, everyone.